Hello and welcome to the Villa Park podcast. It's me, Rich, and I'm back with your Talking Tactics show. We did have a little bit of a break for the for Christmas for the Man United game, but we're back now to react to Aston Villa 3, Burnley 2, and we're going to delve into all the analysis with that with our favourite football data expert, Gareth. Gareth, Happy New Year to you, mate. How are you feeling?
And the same to you, mate. Yes, very good, thank you. Yes, a bit of my cock up for the Man United game, but it is what it is, I suppose. I still posted to the visit on Twitter, so hopefully people got to see them. But yeah, when we're back at it again, it was straight after Christmas, so back on the winning trail, as they say.
Exactly. We don't want to analyze defeats anyway. We want to keep this run going on this show. We haven't done many defeats, so I think we did well to kind of miss that one out. But guys, make sure you hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. We are motoring on past 3,000. We're nearly at 3,100. On the road now to 4,000 subscribers, and you guys can help us get there. So hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and get your comments in below on your thoughts from the Burnley game, and kind of tactically how we're setting up. Do we need to freshen things up, etc., etc.? So yeah, let's get into it. So going to change it up a little bit in terms of how we kind of set up the show. I'm going to do the XG first because there was quite a lot of chances missed, particularly at 2-1. So just from your perspective, from an analyst perspective, how did it look to you in terms of the chances that we were creating and potentially giving up?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think creating was a problem, was it? It was sort of finishing those chances that were created, and we've just got to be better at that. I think really, we should have killed that game off, fairly early on. I think we could have had the chances to kill it off early on. I just didn't think it worked out that way, but I think we have had issues with being a little bit clinical, haven't we, in the past? And I think it's starting to creep back in that little bit more. And yeah, especially against teams like Burnley, I think we're all sort of expecting a sort of a fairly comfortable win sort of thing. And typical Villa, that didn't happen, but also conceding a few too many for my liking.
Yeah, it's always the way, isn't it? It puts a little bit of unnecessary pressure on you conceding goals, because obviously then the chances that are missed do come into focus a lot more. But yeah, we do seem to be creating quite a few chances at the moment. More than previously, where there was all that kind of criticism of the analysts that were saying we were well outperforming our XG, and we weren't, players were finishing chances that, more often than what we were creating. And now it seems like, particularly that Burnley game, the number of shots, the number of chances that are in the box, you're thinking you've got to be putting more of them away.
But this basically, Rich, is that backing up what they were saying and what we were saying on this podcast, that we do overperform in a lot of these XG metrics, and eventually that can catch up with you. And that's what we're seeing now, especially defensively, where we were getting away with it. We were getting away with conceding a lot of chances. We weren't conceding many goals. And that's what we say about we're overperforming or outperforming that expected goals against. And it's starting to creep up against us. And this is what happens with metrics over a period of time. That's why we do them, because you can start to see whether they get better or they get worse. And we're just starting to see those goals sort of coming, hitting those XG really.
Yeah. Timeline. What anything that you're noticing in particular here in terms of the way the game panned out in terms of chances?
I think in conceding 1.1 XG and then actually conceding the two goals was leaves a bit of a sour taste in the mouth, if you like. And us in conceding, sort of scoring, hitting 2.9 XG, you can say that we deserve to get the 3 goals. That's probably about right. My little bit concerned about, and this is where we talked just a minute ago about that XG expected goals against catching up with you a little bit, where you're only conceding 1.1 XG, but you're actually conceding 2 goals in the game. So we just have to be a little bit aware of that.
Yeah, really good, mate. Really good. Let's get into our kind of screenshots now that you've done. Just bear with me while I get the details up. But yeah, you wanted to talk first of all about our right-sided build-up and the shape of our team in that. What did you notice there?
Yeah, this is going to point to more sort of how the influence of Pau Torres in this side now is so great. So we'll get onto that in a second, but this is sort of the precursor to that, if you like. And we build up with a back three because we have Moreno high left, and as you know, Cash isn't playing, so we have Konsa, and we have that sort of back three where Bailey is the width on the right hand side. This is a common thing; we see it all the time. But I just think this is where Konsa sort of he stops the side a little bit, because that build up kind of stops there a little bit. If it's not coming down the left hand side, it stops it down the right hand side, and we need to be more. We've talked about it hundreds of times on here, haven't we? About having to be sort of more balanced on that right hand side than we are on the. This is okay for now. It's not sustainable long term, but the conundrum is that Bailey on that right hand side, if you have an attacking fullback on that side, what then happens to him? What then happens to Moussa Diaby and their combinations, and what happens? And we're going to see. So we're going to get into that a little bit more. But yeah, I just wanted to highlight this and the Burnley 4-4-2 shape, and sort of how they sort of stopped us in midfield, really.
Yeah, while I get the other side of it, it was noticeable. With Conser, the amount of times that Bailey had to like check to go forwards, then check back, and he was making like 2, 3, 4 different runs before Conser would like control it and pass it to him. It just in split seconds of everything in this game, like particularly in the Premier League, and you've got to be confident enough to make that pass first time, or decide exactly what you're going to do. Like you haven't got to control it and then take another touch and then decide, because the moment's gone. And I just feel like sometimes with Konsa in that right back position, we lose that element of speed in terms of our attack.
Yeah, I think if you want to do what you say, and you want to sort of take your time before you take a touch and pass, the pass has then got to be spot on, which is where Pau Torres comes into it. His passing, when he does that, is spot on. Ezri Konsa is a centre half. He's not a right back by any stretch. He's not. You could play him in the right side of a back three. We get it, but he's not a right back. And I think he knows this. Emery knows this. That's why he sets up the way he sets up, the way he does. As soon as Pau Torres comes on, we see a change. We see a lot more of incisive passing. We see that people like Ramsey, they're taking up these better positions because they know that the ball can be fed into them a lot better. And I think this is where Pau Torres sort of comes across as a lot better player in possession than Longley, even as much as Clement has done well.
Yeah. And you saw it, didn't we? We were saying in our own chat, Ramsey was not getting involved in the first half and not looking like he was, we were getting him into any positions. And then as soon as like that second half starts and the second half goes through and Torres gets into it, you're right. You see him receiving the ball on the half turn, causing problems. Then he's getting in the box. Obviously, should have scored as well. And it's almost like a different player.
There's not much more I can add to that. To be honest, it's exactly what it is. It is what it is, And Pau Torres always looks to progress the ball forward. If you notice, he doesn't look to shift it across to Carlos or Konsa. He wants to progress the ball forward, and that's where we're at. And when it comes to this is where they stunted us a little bit. And this is where I think, and you point to our chat, this is what we discussed. John McGinn is not a central midfielder for me. He's got the skill to do it, but he's not where he is best doing it. He's got to be playing further up the park. And this is where I think we lack with Kamara, where Kamara sits a little bit deeper. Luis would push one of those Burnley central midfielders further forward, and we create that space for Pau Torres to be able to thread those passes through. And Burnley, this is where they got it spot on for me. They just sat on Luis and Doug and John McGinn because the movement wasn't there, which is where you need John McGinn further up the pitch for me. And again, Ezri Konsa here, what is he doing? He's playing the ball back. Look what,
Well, yeah, I mean, you can see there's like so many. Burnley want it tight and compact, as you've said there. And you can just see, like, if you were to show the players this analysis, you've got like Luis come out here, like into this area here. McGinn can spin into there, move there. Konsa, you shouldn't be passing it there and standing there. Like, get back into this space to then create more avenues there. It's just like they would see it there in the basic terms, but it's just the personnel that you've got in there. That's not always their natural game to do it.
No, and I think this is when if you've got a more attack-minded right back, he is standing where Leon Bailey is almost, and Leon Bailey is then positioned in between the right back and the centre back there, the left centre back and the left back. So that's where sort of compromises need to be made, I think.
Yeah, definitely. And then you're looking at controlling the spaces around the two Villa sixes. So again, is this highlights again what you were talking about before?
Yeah, I kind of jumped a slide ahead of myself, but yeah, this is basically what the same sort of thing is that Burnley are happy to control that space. They are happy for McGinn and Luis to be in that space because they know that the Villa want to keep the width. So they know that the two central midfielders are going to stay they're going to stay central. And you're playing into their hands a little bit. Again, you're playing into their hands a little bit, really.
Yeah. Is it I mean, the only thing like I would say about McGinn though is he likes to get the ball. He likes to take the ball under pressure. He likes to break the lines. Is it because he's playing that deeper position? He doesn't necessarily want to do it as much because we might get caught then. If he loses the ball, he's like, there's one less line of defense to get through. Because ordinarily he would pick the ball up, say here, and he'd take those two players on. Like, is it just because he's a bit deeper that he's a little bit more reluctant to do that kind of stuff?
Yeah, precisely that. Is position dependent. If he's playing further up, he's not one of them sixes, is he? He's one of the 2 8s. So he'd be playing with Ramsey and him as the 2 8s in the 4-2-2-2, and you'd have McGinn, you'd have Kamara, and Louise behind him. So McGinn is then further forward, free to do that, knowing that he's got the defensive security of Louise and Kamara behind him. So it's position specific, and that's where I think John McGinn isn't effective.
Yeah, if I was him, he's good enough. Like, he's good enough to do it. I would just back myself, mate. Not every single time, but you got to back yourself.
He's more than good enough to be a box-to-box midfielder, Rich. He's got the energy to do it, as you say. So, chances could be taken, but they're being shouted at all the time from that dugout, aren't
they? Yeah. Now, you got Diaby here versus Sheffield United. Are you focusing on a couple of different things here? Was there a difference in Diaby's play?
I'm focusing on exactly the same thing that I think he should not do, because I think a lot of the time this is against Sheffield United, and we picked up on it. We talked about a lot of these runs that Diaby makes off of the ball and how he could sort of be in a little bit more in behind at times. He didn't really do that again. He did it a couple of times, interchanging with Bailey a couple of times. This is against Sheffield United. We want him to make that run. He didn't make that run. But what I should say here is, look who else is playing on that right-hand side. It's Matty Cash. That's the difference.
Yeah. And then this is against Burnley. Again, same position. Same position,
same run not being made. This is where he did it a couple of times, but then he sort of stopped seeming to do it. And this is what we talked about. Is he part of a front two? If he is, then he's got to make them runs. Is he a number 10? If so, he's got to drop deeper and he's got to be sort of more central. He's not got to worry about coming wide here. He's got to leave Leon Bailey to do that right-hand side. But the difference, again, is what I say, is that Leon Bailey has not got that right back overlapping or backing him up that Matty Cash would. He's got Ezri Konsa, who's probably 15, 20 yards behind him. So he's just got to be a little bit more careful. But I'm still not quite sure what Moussa Diaby is in this side. I'm not criticising ability. I just want to know what he is in this side.
Yeah, 100%. You absolutely bang on. Again, highlighting that Diaby. Is it Diaby? Is it Bailey? Is it Ramsey? You've got there missing number 10. Is this a Buendia role that we should be looking at? Are we desperate for him to come back?
100% it's a Buendia role. But again, how do they fit into this side? It's the same thing as if you put an attacking right back on. Does that compromise anything else? Because we know that Leon Bailey won't track back. So therefore, he's going to be up to that. That's where he relies, because he knows Bailey's on that right-hand side. So he's got the defensive security of Ezri Konsa. You won't see Leon Bailey chasing back into his own, or very rarely. He does, but that's not his role. I'm just a bit concerned about how those dynamics then fit in if these players are to come into the side. If Buendia comes in, who drops out? It's going to be Moussa Diaby. Now, some might say that, okay, we'd rather have Buendia in there, actually, because of the role that he would perform in this role. And I think this is what it's almost crying out for. Is it a second striker role? Could you see what we've discussed, could you see a Dybala in there? Possibly. So you've got two different sort of what you want to do. If you're going to stick to a 4-4-2, that's what you're going to have to do. If you're going to stick to a 4-2-3-1, then it's Emi Buendia all day long.
Yeah, I think it just shows you how vital some of the players are when they're not in the side, or have grown to be, the likes of Pau Torres, the likes of Boubacar Kamara, and even to a certain extent, certainly the early part of December, Yuri Tielemans, like he had the kind of legs to be able to cover almost two different roles, like on the ball and off the ball.
Look, Yuri Tielemans almost played his way into the side over 4 games, didn't he? Sort of that was the way. Is he didn't have to really play that much to force his way into the side. There's a few concerns to me, and I think that's what we do as analysts. We ask the questions: what happens if this? What happens if that comes into the side? Do they fit into the group well? I'm a little bit concerned about how that sort of happens, because let's be frank, talking about Pau Torres, Tyrone Mings doesn't get into this side. He just doesn't get into it. Pau Torres is that man. He's that man anymore. You can't. Tyrone Mings hasn't got the ability really on the ball that Pau Torres has. So that's another sort of question that we have. I mean, we haven't got to answer that yet because of his injury. But Moussa Diaby is the one for me, and Leon Bailey is that, and that right back, that right side. Let's say, how does that sort of? How can we develop?
Well, I mean,
that?
yeah. I mean, Bailey at the moment, his goals and his contributions is second to none. So he's flying at the moment. But yeah, it is right. That right back position is it's not a concern. It's sometimes not allowing us to be as expansive or whatever as we might want to be. And then that Diaby position, like you say, it's great that he got his goal. And he was looking a little bit more threatening, definitely. But yeah, it's just getting the most out of him. That's the key.
Yeah,
the key factor.
I think the right side, the right back position, is easier to solve than the Diaby conundrum. I think, because if you get an attacking right back in, we've seen it before. You can just get Kamara dropping to that right hand side out of midfield. I don't think so. I think that can be. And then you haven't got to worry about Leon Bailey having to come back. Let him go forward. Let him do what he wants. And the attacking right back can overlap and come back. You've got Kamara to do that. It's the number 10 thing for me. I just don't quite know how that. I just don't know how Diaby fits into this side at the minute, because I think he's doing well. I just don't think it's an ideal fit, and I hate to say that.
Yeah. Look, it is. That's what we're here for. So last couple of vises in terms of our expected threat, contribution, passes, and set pieces. Anything that you noticed here from any particular player? Obviously, Moreno there, 0.28, not particularly high for anyone though.
No, not particularly. But again, what I would take from that is we see again the left-sided bias and how much that sort of left side did affect things. And that's where Conser sort of, you could say that, okay, he's made a few passes into midfielder, but again, 0.17 is nothing really. And I think this is where Douglas Luiz drops down the pecking order. Look how low John McGinn is on that expected threat. He's right up there with Luca Digne and Douglas Luiz. And again, I think this is where Kamara is so important.
It's crazy, isn't it? It's absolutely crazy to see how one player and then two players added to that with Torres affects it. This again, if we remember one of the first kind of screenshots you took where it was Conser into Bailey, shows you the bias. Obviously, you've got minutes 1 to 62. I guess this is before Torres came on.
That's right.
All right side.
Yeah, it's ironic, really, because we were saying just earlier in the podcast, and that's why I was careful not to go too far with it, but that Conser isn't a great passer into midfield. These are really, he played relatively simple passes just straight down that flank to
Yeah.
That's what we see, yeah. But, again, sort of like we're not sort of hard neither here nor there, are we, I think? And this passing network would look a whole lot different with Kamara and attacking right back. I think you would see that sort of level with Moreno, if you like, as those attacking right backs. And again, Diaby kind of in no man's land a little bit there.
Well, look, they went down to 10 men as well, and that's how you beat 10 men is by expanding the pitch, stretching the pitch, going right, going left, we showed great character to come back and after being pegged back to 2-2 to get the win. But as I've said before, we're having to really dig into the reserves to get these wins, which is brilliant for character, which shows that we're still in it. It's fantastic. People talk about this dodgy run that we've been on, but if you look at December, it's 14 points from 7 Premier League games. It's 2 points per game is fantastic form anyway. So all of that is fantastic. But you want just those players to come back and just add to it, because you can see that the opportunity is there for us to really push on.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's what it is, isn't it? Is that, can you get those players back to really sort of consolidate that third or fourth position? I mean, I can't believe we're saying it, but the third or fourth position. But yeah, you need that a little bit more. I think we're scoring the goal. We're winning games. We shouldn't say that. And if we're winning games by playing the way we're dominating possession, over 60% usually per game it is. So we're dominating games, even against the decent sides, as we've seen with Man City and Arsenal and that. So we've just got to be a bit careful. We've just got to try and kick on a little bit more, I think. That's all.
Yeah. Well, Middlesbrough in the Cup on Saturday, and then Everton in the league, and then a bit of a break, but a bit more not relaxed for the players. I know Emery gave them 3 days off this week to kind of get the recharge the batteries, but a little bit less intense. You know, we know Christmas is intense. We've seen the dodgy results that a number of teams have had, and for Villa to come through, as I said the other day, it's satisfactory to come through from those 3 games with 4 points to add to the December that we've had. So look, it's very, very positive as such, and it'll just be really interesting to see how the players kind of recover and tackle January and February, because again, some big games to come, Gareth.
Definitely. And it'd be nice to have a decent cup run, wouldn't it? You know, it'd be nice to get past Middlesbrough and see what we get. I think that's important. I think a cup run is important, but the more and more I look at it, the more and more I think he's, you know what I'm going to say, he's concentrating on the league.
Yeah, league and Conference League, I think. Yeah. Well, Gareth, fantastic analysis once again. If anyone doesn't know where you are, where can they find you? And we will have news of your website as well coming up and running again. So yeah, on Twitter, where can we find you?
Yeah, you can find me at that Garate AJC.
Brilliant. Well, guys, thank you so much for watching. Make sure you hit that subscribe button. Help us now on the road to 4K. Get involved in the comments, like, subscribe, help this channel grow as you have done already. So thank you so much. As I said, once again, thank you all for watching. And as always, remember, we'll follow the Villa. Thanks, everyone.